Welcome to the Duelist Mind, where it doesn't matter if you're a casual player or a tournament player, you can always learn how to make your plays better. So, today is kind of the first episode of this podcast. I was inspired by a couple of things. One, one of my good friends and buddies, Marcus Dockery, he was playing a young new duelist that felt like he had to play Infinitrax deck versus the deck that he really liked was an Amazoness deck because there's so many monsters in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh that come out at 4 or 5, and he just needed a deck to power creep. So I commend him, and his logic was sound, but what I'm going to call this episode is what you can actually learn from a meta deck, because he's not about the meta, which I am happy about because his mind is kind of expanded and he wants to learn like the little nuances of the game to how to get around stuff. But you can still learn some things from a meta deck to help enhance a deck that doesn't have big boss monsters like that, but still be kind of competitive. The second thing I was inspired by was the loss of a really good friend recently. They died very young, and it's kind of sad to see a person go out so young and they haven't put out a legacy for themselves. And I've been playing this game for 20 years, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to do something, even if it just helps one person out there, to put that information out there and leave a legacy of a duelist to shine. So, who am I? Well, I am a former tournament player, won several tournaments, several regionals, been invited to nationals twice, been playing this game for over 20 years. I've been playing this game since the start. So, I know what I'm talking about when I say playing duel monsters. I know a lot about the game. Now, in my recent years, I kind of fall in this weird category. I'm not really a casual player, but I'm not the diehard tournament player anymore either. I kind of fall in this weird casual competitive category where, yes, I want to do the best that I can with a deck, but I want to still have fun. I know all you are thinking about Battle City, that quote from Kaiba, where he says, "I'm not here to have fun. I'm here to win." But you have to admit, there is a lot of us out there that still want to have fun and engage our minds and have strategy play, not what I like to call Negateville, where everything is being negated and there's no strategy to it. It's just really easy to negate everything and swing for the victory. Whereas if you're actually countering somebody's strategy by counterplaying and lost targets and all that stuff, it's a lot more fun and a lot more engaging. So, with that, we're gonna continue on with the scenario that I gave you with the young duelist and how you can actually learn from the meta. So before I get into actual things you can learn from the meta, which is basically how to make your deck consistent and stuff like that. There are times that with deck ratios and what you're trying to do, you might actually need to break out of that type of mind frame. But that's something I might bring up for another episode here that I'm talking about. For right now, let's just focus on your new duelist. You have your deck and you built it for consistency, but you don't have certain cards to deal with pesky high level boss monsters. All right. This is especially pertaining to Master Duel, since Master Duel has been an easy way for a lot of people to play the game. There are some cards that I feel like these type of duelists need to throw in their deck. So one is bottomless trap hole. Simple. Monster comes out that's over 1500. If it comes out, you got pesky monsters. Trust me, I did this to Marcus recently. You're probably gonna see it on the YouTube channel a little bit later, but because we were play testing our decks, he came out with Luster Soldier. I was like, nope, I can't do that thing right now. Go away, go away. But it works. It's like sometimes a pesky boss monster comes out. You don't have your deck doesn't have the capability of dealing with it. Play bottomless, get it away. Another thing, and this is something I want a lot of you new duelists to think about. This is what goes through my mind when I'm playing the game. That's why I'm calling this the Duelist Mind. A lot of boss monsters take a lot of resources to put together. There are some decks that don't require that much resources to put the boss monster together, but it's slim and very few. Most of them, it takes a lot of resources to put the boss monster together. So keep in mind that you want to have more resources than your opponent. So another good way to deal with a boss monster that comes out and is summoned is compulsory evacuation. As long as it comes out, and long as it's not, one of those monsters that can't be affected, compulsory evac, throw it back into their hand, and guess what? They're gonna have to waste more resources to put that monster back out to the field. So now I threw out the caveat. There are those monsters that can't be affected. And we're going to talk about those in a minute. If they're unaffected by magic and traps, there are still ways you can deal with them. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about what you see in the meta and how that can help you enhance a deck that normally doesn't have really big boss monsters. So, Solomon package. A lot of people run it. So, Solomon Warning, Solomon Strike, Solomon Judgment. So, these are very effective cards to negate and to stop anything. You do have to pay life points though, and that's why I said my first two suggestions first, because those you don't have to really pay life points. But the Solomon package does work, and you can also use it on other things like spells and stuff like that. But if you're a duelist that has a deck that can't deal with pesky boss monsters, you want to save these cards, stop those boss monsters. Now, I've been running, especially in the NR event that's coming up in Master Duel, I've been running one of the Solomon package cards that's actually really easy to get in the game that I know a lot of people don't like running, but it's actually still a very good card. Solemn Scolding. And it's a R, believe it or not. So if you're playing the NR event, throw that in your deck. It's actually a really good card. You just got to remember that it's the only card it has to sit on the field. It's the only one that's got to be set. But it will stop anything, but you have to pay 3K, which is good. What the effect is that it has to be the only card set on the field in order to activate and then negate. And it costs 3,000 life points, but it will stop anything. It's still a good card. It's just not the ideal card because a lot of people like playing Solomon Strike, Solomon Judgment, Warning, all that stuff to stop pesky boss monsters. When you think about it that way, that's one good thing about the meta that actually helps new duelists to learn. It's like, well, I don't have to put a big boss monster in it. As long as I have ways to stop certain things and still control the narrative, I can still get around and duel this person and get through it. So there you go. Now, there's another thing you can easily do when getting back to what I was mentioning earlier about those boss monsters that are unaffected. They're going to come. You can't stop the summon. They're there. They're at 4K. What do? You can punch it. And I know a lot of you are saying, new duelists out there are saying, yo, that, uh, how can I punch it? I don't have a way. If I don't got a boss monster that's equally, how do I punch it? There's this thing in the game that's called equip cards, and they do work. Better yet, this is what I suggest, because I know some of y'all don't like playing with equip cards, but there are some equip cards that I would suggest, especially if you have a deck that can swarm or stuff like that. I definitely suggest putting in your decks. One of them is United We Stand. United We Stand is a dope card if you can get that thing running. It's a great card, and it will help you punch a boss monster if you set up the scenario. United We Stand is such a great card. It works. It's all good. Another really good card, like a lot of people like to run Acts of Despairs, which does work. Another thing you could do is steal the monster, like a Snatch Steal, even though I feel like Snatch Steal has been banned. But Brain Control, you can do that and then pitch it with a link play or something like that, or toss it with a tribute of your own. And then there you go. You got rid of the pesky monster. There's also kaijuing, which is very popular in the meta. Throw kaiju in your deck. Whatever you can afford to have in your deck. Maybe put like one or two. I know some people want to do consistency and put three, but don't always have to do that. A lot of times, what I want you to think about is you have a deck that you have like this. You want to have options to deal with it. As I like to say, I like to have variety. I I've built several decks where I have one shots of everything versus multiples of everything. And a lot of people are like, how do you make this run? There's ways to make it run. You just gotta have a different mindset of thinking with accelerators and stuff like that, learning how to fetch your cards and everything to get it. But yeah, so there you go. Oh yeah, Megamorph is another good equip card. Um, I am definitely a big fan. Oh, Big Bang Shot is a good one too, because banish it. Mage Power, that's the one I was thinking about, which is easy to put together. I feel like Mage Power is probably easier than United Resistance, depending on how you play. Because if you have more magic and traps in your hand, depending how you build your deck, you can easily just like drop, equip Mage Power, drop, swing, and you can take out that monster. So there you go. But United Withstand is also a great one if your deck has more special summoning power and you can swarm, so forth. So these are some of the ways that you can make a low tier deck a lot better than what you think. So there you go. So I want you duelists to really think about that. So it's not just learning the things about the meta as a sense of how to control the narrative. It's also learning how to, hey, if I understand my boss monster is no higher than 25,000 attack, how do I deal with this stuff? Think about it. A lot of people that are fans of this game seen Dark Magician and Blue Eyes. And there are so many ways that Dark Magician has gotten around the Blue Eyes. You can play cards that is like, hey, can I tribute that? Get rid of it. You can play a creature swap. Yeah, now I got your Blue Eyes. Now I'm gonna smack it. See, steal cards, so forth. There are so many ways to deal with stuff. You just got to be willing to open your mind to learning those steps of play. So there you go, throwing it out there. Like, look, and you can throw multiple. You don't have to be like, just okay. I got this deck, and all I'm gonna do is put in maybe some negates of like the Solomon package and some equip cards, and I'm good. No, experiment. That's what this game is all about. Experimenting. Put a little, dabble a little bit. Put a little bit of each. Maybe put in a couple of the Solomon package in, or put in a bottomless, and then that. But also throw in a couple of equip cards. Hey, throw in a card that'll allow you to steal your opponent's monster when that big SK boss monster is out there. Maybe you can steal it and use it for yourself or tribute it all. There's so many ways that you can really deal with stuff. It's not even funny. Yeah, there are ways out there to deal with stuff. You just gotta open your mind a little bit to learn how to do these plays. But it's not just learning how to do the plays, it's learning the timing to do the plays. So, problem that I see, especially on stuff like even Master Duel, that I see that a lot of people are doing is they're in autopilot. What I mean by that is they're just doing the plays constantly over and over again. They're just used to doing the play, but they're not used to looking at their environment. They're just like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to swing. Sometimes it is better to assess what is going on and maybe do partial of a play than a full play. What do I mean by that? Okay, I'll give you a scenario. All right, your opponent, they have a BLS out there. Okay, you have Water of Life. I'm going to make it a lot more towards this in our event. You have Water of Life, a Miracle Wake, and you might have like something like a Hammer Shot or Fissure. Okay, yeah, something like a Hammer Shot or Fissure. You don't have no monsters. Okay, is there, look at the field and be like, okay, is their monster unaffected? Because what I see a lot of times, some people are such in emotions and they're so quick to like waste, like in our event it'll be a lightning vortex instead of a Regeki. To waste a Regeki where you could just use a Hammer Shot or a Fissure, deal with it instead. Save that Regeki swarm moment, then clear. Or there's another best case scenario when to play cards like, if you are low on resources, you have a card or two in your hand, and you know that it's going to be really hard for you to deal with the monster across the field, and you just need to get your monster out and clear theirs. That's more of an appropriate time to play something like a Regeki, Lightning Force, Dark Hole, ECT, if you understand what I'm saying. Because I see Dark Holes and Regekis get wasted all the time. And I was just like, guys, I didn't have a swarm out there. I just had one monster. And it wasn't even a boss monster. It might have been something like 23 attack. And they clear, and it was like, and then they throw out something that's like 25. I was like, hold on. Why didn't you just take the time to put the monster out there? Stuff like that. See, these are like the weird little things with plays that we need to get better instead of us kind of being reactionary. A lot of the times I see people in Duelist being reactionary and not actually looking at the scenario and learning how to save certain stuff at certain times and all that, and it costs them a duel. I have a good example right now on the YouTube channel where this dude could have beat me because he already had the math, but he wanted to build this board. And once he built the board, he put a Zeus out there and all that. I was like, okay, I'm just going to play around your Zeus, make you use materials. Then I'm going to kill the Zeus, and then I'm going to come back and win. And that's exactly what I did. Because he misplayed how everything he wanted to do. He was just like, well, I'm going to put Zeus out there. I'll have a couple of negates and all that. One thing, and this is something new duelists are not going to be used to yet, but you're going to have to learn how to do it. That is baiting your opponent to use their abilities. So I sat there when he put that Zeus out there. I was like, okay, bro, I'm just going to bait it out. I got enough cards to bait out the Zeus's ability. Then I'm going to actually play, get stuff on the field, kill Zeus, and then go for the win. And that's exactly a pro level type thinking that you need to get to. You need to get to that line of thought instead of just being reactionary, be like, oh, okay, or defeatist to the point where it's like, yo, there's nothing I can do. Always stop Look what you have in your hands. Look what you have in your graveyard. Look at your options and see what you can actually do. As my friends talk about it all the time, I've never, still to this day, I've never scooped, never surrendered. I take it as is because each duel, whether it's a win or loss, you can learn from it. And that's what I do. I sit there, I analyze, I look. Even if I lose, I am taking it as a learning experience. So there you go. So another thing I want you duelists out there to think about is, I mentioned this earlier, it takes a lot to put these monsters together. So what are they using to put the monsters together? Are they just using regular monsters? Are they using a magic or a trap card? Stuff like that. This is where you will have to start using other stuff. MST, because it's quick play, set it during end of phase of your turn, so that way it could be active to destroy like a card or stuff. It doesn't negate, and that's the bad part of an MST. But if they're doing like one of those pitch plays, I used to do it all the time. Foolish Barrier, throw away that. Call it a haunted. They're using Call It a Haunted or something like that to get that back. Bruh, MST, boom, it's gone because Call It a Haunted is a continuous trap card. Unless they do some crafty stuff that like I used to do and be like, all right, Jinzo. Because if they do it that way, guess what? Jinzo stays on the field. Now, you could seven tools, get rid of the card. Solomon scolding, get rid of the card, negate it. You know, things like that. So you got to think about how they're also putting this stuff together. If they're using a ritual spell card, Magic Jammer, Spell Shield Type 8, Curse Seal, those type cards, they will stop the activation, and guess what? They don't get the rituals. Or maybe they will, but you're forcing them to use something else to do it. All about not just controlling the narrative on the field, but controlling the resources that they have. So, for example, a card that a lot of people, I haven't seen anybody run this card in a while because everybody said the card is bad because they can still get their effect. The card is not bad. It's just matters of how you're thinking. Magic Drain. Magic Drain, you know, if they really want the spell card, they got to pitch. And then sometimes people say they play in a ritual card. Sometimes people might not pitch, get the effect off. And guess what? Good. Or you wait to play it until you see that they have two or one card in their hand. They play it, and you're like, all right, bro, drain. I already know that other card in your hand is your ritual monsters. Guess what? I just stopped the ritual summon. These are the ways that people need to start thinking in the game, start stuff. So just keep in mind these are ways to help you with your plays, to get better with your plays, and get around bigger monsters. So I hope this helps a lot of the young duelists out there. Until next time, guys, peace, love, stay gaming, my friend.